So here we are, 2005, GoldenEye, where are you? The thing that you need to understand about GoldenEye though is that it is an absolute licensing nightmare. Like I said, in 1995 the original developers were already having trouble getting the likeness of Sean Connery and a host of other James Bond characters, villains, heroes. So 20 years later, the issue's not going to be any easier. It's only going to be more complicated and more convoluted. Are you ready to dig in? So here we are, 2005, there's no sign of GoldenEye. Nintendo were the publishers of the original game, but they don't hold the rights to it anymore. Bloody Rare is now canoodling up with Microsoft because Microsoft have just bought them off Nintendo. And EA currently has the bloody license to make games now anyway in 2005. So GoldenEye's just gone in the wind, baby. It's gone. Well, this is where the GoldenEye story starts to pop off. This is where Bill wanted me to start. So, starting with the article from Ars Technica, when GoldenEye got leaked last week, there was also a documentary that people have also unearthed or rediscovered or just put out there again, basically. And it's just an interview with the developers from GoldenEye, and it just sheds some fascinating details on what was going on behind the scenes all these years. Let's get into it. Yeah, so the article says the project began in either late 2006 or early 2007. To be honest, you know when it was. The reason why you're being so coy about it is because you didn't even have permission to work on this game. You didn't have permission from Nintendo. You didn't have permission from Activision, who now holds the license. I thought it was EA the other day. Bloody hell, I can't even keep up. And they didn't have permission from MGM or Eon Productions, who own the actual film rights. So I'm not surprised the team was small, and I'm not surprised there was only 8 people working on it, because you weren't allowed. They weren't allowed to work on it, so why are they working on this game? Anyway, there was a lot of people who had worked with Nintendo in Rare, so some of them have obviously decided to think that they can take some liberties. Don't get too comfortable with Nintendo. Just because you've worked with Nintendo for a couple of years, it doesn't mean you can go to another company and start plagiarising. I'm not having it. Okay, so there was a guy who worked at Rare who now works for Microsoft, and he was called Ken Lobb, which, funny enough, is where the gun club comes from in GoldenEye. The club gun was so rubbish. Oh my god, it was weak! Anyway, basically they were hustling to get these rights. There was a lot of hoops that they had to jump through, and they hadn't jumped through those hoops, so they carried on working on the game anyway. So the article then goes on to say that Rare originally planned to use the original N64 assets and all the source code. Rare owns it. It's Rare's. So they can do what they want then. This licensing business is tricky. Okay, so what they're saying is that the project always started out as a passion project. You know, they weren't going to do some mad remake, they weren't going to do a Final Fantasy VII style remake on it. It wasn't like that. It wasn't that deep. They just wanted to fine tune it. Do you know what I mean? There was no plans to change the game's scope, change the music, make any tweaks like that, because this was just a quick thing. In and out like a bank robbery. Make the game, dash it out. This is where the story gets interesting. So, the article then goes on to say, as the project went on, Edmund and Barry, the 2 developers who previously worked for Nintendo at Rare, now work for Rare at Microsoft. At some point in production, at some point when they were downstairs in the basement working on this game that they shouldn't have been, like little rats, someone gave them the green light. Someone said, you can make this game, it's alright for GoldenEye to come out, we've got the go-ahead. Did you ask Nintendo? Okay, so the article then goes on to say the rights were all cleared with no condition that anybody had to work on a version for a Nintendo console or any other requirements. See, now I'm not having that. I remember at a time when there were rumours that GoldenEye was going to come to Xbox Live. I remember this, but I also remember that it was under the stipulation that it had to come on the Nintendo console as well. I am sure. Anyway, according to this article, they're saying that they could. But again, Nintendo don't own the game. Rare own the source code. Rare own the art assets. The game's technically Rare's. Anyway, so it says the rights were all cleared, nobody had to consult to Nintendo. Not happy about that, but again, that's how it all works. So they continue to work on it. Oh, okay. But now it's saying GoldenEye cancelled, done, lacquer, turn it off, get out, stop making the game. So, what happened? Right, so there was a really, so what year are we in now? I mean, I don't even know what year this is. This is still 2006, 7? It's 2007, and we're now finding out some of the finer details about why GoldenEye was cancelled in the Xbox 360. Listen to this. I mean, I'm smiling, but it's not because I'm happy it got cancelled. Sources say when it was put to Nintendo, everybody approved it. Great, brilliant, right? That's what you'd think. Except there was one guy who didn't approve it. Do you know who that guy is? I told you about him before. Mr. Yamamuchi! Remember, I told you this guy is a savage. I'm a savage. Yeah. Classy, bougie, ratchet. Sassy, moody, nasty. This guy is bloody savage. He locked the whole thing off. The guy wasn't even Nintendo's president in 2007, but he still had enough stakes in shares, enough influence at Nintendo, where he was like, nah, not happening. If it's not on a Nintendo console, it's not going on a bloody American system. Sorry, what was that, Bill? I'm talking fake news, what do you mean? That article has now been updated. They've redacted the statements. Okay, we're gonna have to rewind. So since the article was published after 2007, the two developers started sweating, getting scared, and they've come to clarify what they meant. So, here's what they've now changed the version of events to. They were scared, basically. Nintendo must have sent them an NDA. I don't know. Nintendo ninjas. Let's see what they're going to change their mind to now. Shit, get banned. The two developers now go on to say the Nintendo executive who spiked the project was not Yamamuchi, due to his no longer officially working at Nintendo, but rather some other Nintendo executive whose name was left a mystery to the Red development team. Supposedly, whoever this mystery executive is said this: there is no way a Nintendo game is coming out on a Microsoft console. I mean, Mr. Yamamuchi said that many years. This is Mr. Yamamuchi. He said the same thing. They're lying. These people know that it was Mr. Yamamuchi that locked off, but they just don't want to get sued. Okay. Whoa. I'm just looking here. So, I'm just going to read this article real quick. It says, in November 2006, Nintendo of America president, good old Reggie, announced that Nintendo was exploring the possibility of adding the Nintendo 64 game GoldenEye to the Virtual Console. This is the thing that I remember. Okay, so it says, despite a complicated situation in which the game's developer Rare is owned by Microsoft and the video game rights to the James Bond franchise are held by Activision, Reggie was just saying he's expecting rights issues. We're all expecting rights issues for this. Reggie stated that he would love to see GoldenEye the Virtual Console, so Nintendo were exploring all these licensing issues. They were trying to jump through these legal hoops. They were on it. And then you fast forward to 2008, and they're talking about GoldenEye being re-released on Xbox Live Arcade now. So what's happened to the Wii Virtual Console version? I don't know. Now everyone's talking about Xbox Live Arcade. Something's going on. So it turns out that the rumor has it that the reason why it all mashed up around the 2007-2008 period is because Nintendo and Microsoft couldn't agree on the financial side of things. Who's getting what? Nintendo and Microsoft don't even like each other. So when it comes to splitting up the bloody proceeds,
as we proceed to give you what you need,
who's getting what? It wouldn't exist without Nintendo, so Nintendo should at least get 50%. Microsoft aren't doing any hard work at all, they're just putting it on Xbox Live. This is rare than Nintendo's game. Microsoft should have just been willing to pay Nintendo whatever percentage they wanted of the profits.
We proceed.
And we wouldn't be in this situation, would we?
To give you what you need.
It would be on Xbox Live, it would be on the bloody Virtual Console, and everyone would be laughing. It's becoming apparent that to get GoldenEye running on any console, there's going to be a lot of hoops to jump through. This is the first time that it looks to be really heavily apparent. So fast forward to 2010, and do you know what happened? A remake of GoldenEye is announced. Praise the Lord, hallelujah, praise His name, Jesus Lord. Hallelujah, rejoice. No, we're not gonna rejoice. Because this game, this GoldenEye game, is not the game that we all know and love. What is this? Okay, so I'm not gonna lie, I bought this game because I was excited, I was hyped. They were promising a faithful recreation of the original GoldenEye game that we all know and love from the N64. And they sucked me in.
Who here would say that it's one of the greatest shooters of all time?
Everybody.
Set the standards for all video games in the future.
It was the first game that I could play multiplayer for 4 hours straight.
For me, it was the original. I mean, like, if you hooked it up now, I'd be down to play.
Let's say that after 13 years of gaming innovation, a new GoldenEye game is coming up.
Oh my god! Yes!
Yeah, they replaced Pierce Brosnan with Daniel Craig. Not happy about that, but that's fine. You remade some of the levels, but you butchered the game. Who made this game? Eurocom. To be fair, I enjoyed this game. The multiplayer was fun because there was no other multiplayer games to play on the Wii. So by default, it was one of the best multiplayer games on there. Well, in terms of first-person shooters. This isn't it. This isn't it. This isn't the GoldenEye I want. We're getting further and further away from that GoldenEye N64 remaster appearing on Xbox or any Nintendo console. So I mean, it's 2015 now. Everybody's sick and tired of trying to get GoldenEye running on some console in one form or another. Whether it's a port, a remaster, a remake on Nintendo console or a Microsoft console, Xbox Live or Virtual console, we don't know. Everyone's had enough. Even bloody Phil Spencer's leaving tweets saying he's tired. Nobody can be bothered trying to get this game up and running anymore. It's too much. Activision have the license now for games. MGM and Sony are making the phones. Nintendo aren't saying anything. Microsoft owned the company that made the game. It's a mess. So here we are now, 2021, and what happens? Who releases GoldenEye? How do the fans get to play a 60 frames per second 4K resolution updated textured new character models version of one of the best games of all time? You just have to go and download it off the internet. I'm not having it. I'm not having it. I can't play it unless I go and illegally download it. I don't even have a PC. I've got a Mac. I can't play ROMs. This is our game. I want it back. I want it back. I want it back. I mean, it's just a real, it's just shit. This is one of the greatest games of all time, and this is how it's been released. Unofficially, without any fanfare, got bloody dirty CD methods to acquire it. I can't even play it on this channel because Nintendo will take it as a... Will Nintendo take it as a strike though? No, because it's not Nintendo's game anymore. I mean, at least the game's accessible. At least the game's out there, and it's out there.